Welcome to Profitable Women, a podcast for the female business owner who wants to build a profitable and sustainable business that aligns with their life. We will talk about the money stories impacting your decisions, financial strategies to grow your profits, and how to embrace your female superpowers. I'm your host, Sheila Hansen, certified public accountant, business mentor, and certified coach. As a mom of three and business owner, I have spent the last 7 years supporting six-figure business owners make confident financial decisions while raising my babies. After making the hard decision to leave my job at a public accounting firm when I had my oldest, I'm now on a mission to empower women to build wealth without sacrificing themselves. If you find yourself avoiding conversations about money, are burnt out from working all the time, wonder where your cash goes, or want to learn how to pay yourself six figures, you're in the right place. Remember, the information in this podcast is general in nature and for educational purposes only. For specific financial advice for your situation, please consult a professional. Now, with that out of the way, let's get to the show. Welcome back to another episode of Profitable Women. We are in the middle of our series on capacity. And in the last episode, we talked about just the general concept, and we really introduced this multi-episode series we're going to go through with capacity. And we talked about the idea that belief comes first, and we have to believe something's possible before we can create it. But then comes action. And we have to build this vessel capable of holding the thing we say we want. And in the intro episode, we talked about the 3 areas and resources that I think are incredibly important when we're looking at capacity for our businesses, which is time, energy, and money. And today we're going to dig deeper into the topic of time capacity, because I think this is probably the easiest form of capacity for us to recognize, and also one of the easiest to completely misunderstand. And if we think about it, how many times have we said, I'm behind, I have too much to do, I'm overwhelmed, I don't have enough time, I'm so busy, I just need to get caught up. I know I have absolutely said all of those things, but lately I've gotten really curious about the language that we use around time, especially the idea that we're quote unquote behind. Behind what? Where exactly were you supposed to be? Who created the timeline you're measuring yourself against? Because sometimes being behind is factual. For example, in our business, there are tax return deadlines. And so if the deadline was April 15th and it's now April 20th and a return or extension wasn't filed, we are behind, right? There's a measurable deadline that's in place or set. But a lot of the time, that phrase, I'm behind, isn't actual information. It's a judgment. Maybe you wanted to launch something by now. You thought your business should be further along. You haven't gotten to something on your to-do list. And maybe you've watched somebody else accomplish something that you haven't. And suddenly your brain decides we're behind, which creates urgency. And urgency is really interesting to me because urgency makes everything feel like an emergency. I need to answer that email. I need to get out that proposal. I need to finish the project. I need to post something. I need to call that person. I need to update the website. I need to check Slack. I need to get caught up. And suddenly we're moving through our entire day with our body receiving this message, hurry, hurry, hurry. There's no bear actually chasing us, but our calendar might be communicating otherwise. I don't know if you have kids or not, but the best example I can give of this is the visible and difference that you can see in the mornings when you are rushing to get out the door versus just getting out the door. They probably take the same amount of time, but one feels way more chaotic and frantic than the other. So to dig into this topic a little more, I want you to think about your calendar. And if we have our calendar and our schedule set up that we have a meeting from 9 to 10, jump on another one from 10 to 11, something else from 11 to noon, and then we're back in a meeting at noon, on paper, this works. You had 4 hours of availability, you scheduled 4 hours of meetings. Perfect use of capacity, right? Except, when do you go to the bathroom? When do you refill your water? When do you eat lunch? When do you write down the things you promised the client you'd send them from a call you just had? When do you respond to the message that came in during the meeting? When do you mentally leave one conversation before entering another? When do you get to stare out the window for 3 minutes and think about absolutely nothing? Where is the space to be human in that 4-hour block? That's the piece I've gotten really curious about, and I can admit in the past was awful about implementing for myself. Because we tend to calculate time capacity like we're machines. 8 available hours equals 8 hours of capacity. But we're humans and we don't work that way, especially when we're doing work that requires us to think, be creative, problem solve, communicate, lead, make decisions, and hold space for other people. We don't just need time to perform the task, we need time built in around the task. If you've been listening to episodes here on Profitable Women and thinking, okay, I understand these concepts you're talking about, but how do I actually apply this to my business? That's exactly why I created Profit Shift. Profit Shift is for the business owner who wants to understand her numbers, but doesn't want another formula telling her what her business is supposed to look like. Because your business isn't supposed to look like mine. Your definition of enough might be different, your capacity is different, and your goals are different. And the life you're asking your business to support is also different. So inside Profit Shift, we're bringing all of those pieces together. We look at what's actually happening in your business financially, your revenue, profitability, pricing, cash flow, taxes, and what you need your business to provide for you. But we don't stop at just the numbers. We get curious about what you're making those numbers mean, where fear and shame might be showing up, where your decision making is from urgency instead of information, and what needs to shift so you can build the business you actually want. Because your numbers aren't a report card, they're simply information. And when you know how to use the information, you can create a roadmap from where you are today to where you want to go. That's the shift. Not following somebody else's formula, not chasing someone else's version of success. Understanding your business well enough and trusting yourself enough to make decisions that support your version of success. It sounds like the kind of a relationship you want to have with your business and your money. I'd love to have you inside Profit Shift. You can find the details of the upcoming round in the show notes. Over the last year in my business, I have gotten really curious about how long things actually take. Not how long I think they should take, not how long I'd like them to take, but how long do they actually take? Because if we don't know that, we can't possibly know our capacity. Let's say you think a particular task takes an hour, so you schedule the hour. But if it actually takes an hour and 20 minutes, that missing 20 minutes has to come from somewhere. Maybe you skip lunch. Maybe the next task gets pushed back. Maybe you work later. Maybe you answer emails while you're making dinner. Maybe you tell yourself you're inefficient, but you start saying, I'm behind. But what if you're not actually behind? What if the math was wrong? That's a completely different problem. This is where I think our brains and our nervous system intersect in a really fascinating way. Because I do love data. Data removes judgment. If something consistently takes 90 minutes and you've been giving yourself 60 minutes, the solution isn't necessarily you need to get faster. Maybe the solution is to schedule 90 minutes. Now, that sounds ridiculously simple, but think about what happens in your body when you do that. Instead of spending the last 30 minutes thinking, I'm taking too long, I need to hurry, the next thing is starting, why can't I get this done faster? You simply have enough time. There's nothing wrong, there's no emergency. Your system matches reality. And I think this is one of the biggest opportunities we have when we talk about our nervous system in business. We can talk about regulation practices, meditation, breathing, walking, journaling, somatic work. All of those things are really incredibly helpful. But I also think we need to look at the environment we're asking our nervous system to exist inside. Because we can't schedule ourselves back to back from 8 to 4, forget to eat lunch, have 47 things to do on our to-do list, tell ourselves we're behind all day, and then wonder why we feel overwhelmed. Sometimes the nervous system work is changing the system. Sometimes regulation looks like a 15-minute buffer. Sometimes it looks like blocking lunch on your calendar. And sometimes it looks like not booking meetings before 10 a.m. or deciding that something can wait until tomorrow. It looks like actually knowing how long your work takes. And it looks like leaving 20% of your calendar empty. Not because you're lazy, but because you're human. It's really important when we talk about growing a business to realize that if your current calendar is already at 100% capacity, where is the growth supposed to go? Let's say you do have a goal of 5 new clients, and to hit your financial results, you need that goal. That's amazing. You can believe those clients are possible. Even if you've done the mindset work, visualized it, you've updated your marketing, you've put yourself out there. But then if 5 inquiries land in your inbox tomorrow, can your business hold them? Where does that work go? If you don't know that, that's valuable information. It doesn't mean you can't have those clients. It means you've identified the vessel that needs to expand. Maybe with better systems, maybe with delegating, maybe your pricing needs to change so you don't need as many clients. Maybe your offer needs to be simplified. Maybe you need to let go of something or hire, or your turnaround times need to change. This is why I don't want us to use capacity to shrink our dreams. I want to use capacity as data. Instead of saying, I don't have capacity for that, what if we said and asked, what would need to change for me to have capacity for that? Now we're back in possibility. There's another part of time capacity that we overlook, and that is the transition time. You finish a client meeting at 10. At 10:01, you're supposed to be writing copy. At 11, you're reviewing financials. At noon, you're eating lunch while checking email. 12:30, you're back on Zoom. We expect our brains to move from one type of work to another, but we don't work that way. We carry things with us. Maybe the client said something you're still thinking about. Maybe you just jot down some notes. Maybe the meeting today was emotionally heavy. Maybe you just need 5 minutes before you ask your brain to switch from talking to calculating. And transition time isn't wasted, it's part of the work. And when we don't account for it, we create another deficiency with our capacity. So if we've been telling ourselves, I'm overwhelmed, I can't keep up, I'm behind, I need to be more productive, I want you to get curious before you make those phrases mean something about you. Ask, is this actually a productivity problem? Is this a capacity problem? Do I know how long my work actually takes? Am I scheduling the task or am I scheduling the entire experience around the task? Do I have transition time? Do I have space to eat and think and space for something unexpected to happen? So, are you planning based on the capacity of being a human being or the capacity of a machine? Because your goal isn't to squeeze the maximum amount of productivity out of every available minute. The goal is to create a business you can actually sustain. An empty hour on your calendar isn't necessarily unused capacity. It might be the very thing that allows everything around it to work. It's where the unexpected client email goes. It's where the task that took 20 minutes longer goes. It's where the idea you suddenly have goes. It's where creativity goes. And if we fill every inch of the vessel, there's no room for expansion. So I want you to try something this week. Don't immediately go and change your calendar, but I want you to observe it and get curious. How long do things actually take? Where do you consistently feel rushed? Where are you moving immediately from one thing into another? Where are you skipping your basic human needs because there's quote unquote no time? Where do you keep telling yourself you're behind? And when that phrase comes up, I'm behind, ask yourself, is that true? Behind what? Is there an actual deadline? Or am I creating urgency around a timeline that exists only in my head? Then ask the question we've been exploring throughout this series. What capacity would I need to build to hold what I want? Because belief comes first. Believe in the bigger business. Believe in the impact, the revenue, and the life you want to create. But then build a vessel capable of holding it. Not by squeezing more in every available minute, but by creating enough structure and enough space for you to actually live inside the thing you're building. Because you're part of the capacity equation too. Join us next week for a deeper dive into capacity. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Profitable Women. Make sure you never miss an episode by hitting the follow button in your favorite podcast player. And things are always easier when you talk about them with a friend, so be sure to share this episode with them. If you're looking for more ways to grow your financial confidence, head to the show notes for a link to subscribe to our weekly email. Until next time.